Meow, welcome to the PodKat. Coming to you from my pod, this is Kat. Today is Saturday, April 11th. Yes, I did that at the beginning. I always wait until halfway through the episode to realize I've forgotten. So I am going to go ahead and hop right into today's kind of cozy episode with my fun, cozy friend. Hi, GW.
Hey, Miss Kitten, how are you?
I'm hanging in there, girl. You want to tell us who you are and where you're coming to us from?
Yeah, my name is Kaitlin, and I'm currently living in Longmont, Colorado. It's about an hour north of Denver.
Okay, and do you want to tell us briefly how you've been affected by the pandemic?
Well, it's been an interesting kind of shift. I'm going to say about 2 weeks before the stay-at-home orders kind of came into effect. My company, I work for a biotech company down in Boulder, Colorado. They were very, alert about everything that was going on, and they sent as many workers to work from home, including me, which has been a little bit difficult because I primarily work within a lab situation. So I do a lot of pipetting and experiments. So I now work from home, which has been very different, a lot more computer work, more report writing, which has been, a good shift for me. So professionally, that's kind of what's been going on for me. I'm at home every single day, and I feel so bad for my husband because he still works, and so he has to come home to me, who hasn't, interacted with anyone at all every single day. But so far, it's been pretty good in that sense.
Hey, you have your dog around, right? The pup?
Yeah, we have a little 8-month-old, German Shepherd Rottweiler mix, and she's a little bit of a handful, but at the same time, it's been nice to be home because otherwise we crate her during the day. So, just kind of having her out and about, and I'm able to train her throughout the day. That's super, super nice. So it's been nice hanging out with her. I think the hardest thing that has been happening for me is my lack of activities now. I used to dance all the time. I'm in a couple different dance troupes, and I go to different dance classes for fun and exercise, and all of my gyms and stuff have shut down, so that's no longer happening. And then usually on Sunday nights I go over to my mom and dad's house for a little family dinner, and we're trying to do that social distancing activity, so I haven't been able to hang out with my family for a few weeks, which has been really hard.
You told me that you were baking this afternoon for Easter tomorrow?
I am, yes.
What'd you end up baking?
Have you ever heard of pavlova?
Is it like a bread thing, a sweet bread?
It's like a meringue, basically. Ooh. So it's from the New Zealand/Australia area, and one of my cousins made it one year for Easter, and I loved it, so I wanted to recreate it. And it's it kind of looks like a little nest, a little meringue nest. And then you kind of fill it with either whipped cream. I'm making lemon curd to go in the little nest area. And then you top it with...
I love lemon curd. Oh my gosh. Like a lemon curd pie or just spreading it on toast. Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, it's amazing. So I made the lemon curd, and I'm going to finish up the actual meringue after the call. And then, put some blueberries on top for tomorrow. It'll be our little dessert for Easter.
Oh, I haven't really been able to do any Easter stuff as far as, getting treats and Easter eggs. And normally we do really intense Easter egg dyeing, but none of, we do the Ukrainian style, with the wax and everything. And since I can't do any of that, the best I can come up with is I'm spending today writing secret little notes, and I'm going to hide them around the house tomorrow, little love notes for my wife to do a Easter egg hunt tomorrow. I'm going to cut them out so they look like little Easter eggs. But I'm that's all I got right now. So no candies. Although yesterday she came home with a whole bunch of Easter sweets that her grocery store had to get rid of because they're going to be closed on Easter. So they're trying to get a bunch of the stock out of there. So she had brownies and gummies and candies. And I was like, it's Christmas. I was really happy.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. Yeah, usually we'll go over to my mom and dad's house for Easter, and my mom has her whole, she's got a big old house. She'll decorate it up, and she'll hide Easter eggs around the house for us, and then there'll be clues inside as to where our Easter baskets are. It's the cutest mom thing ever. And I kind of like had a realization this week. I was like, we're not going to have our Easter this year. And it really like hurt my heart. So while I was doing some like grocery shopping, I just kind of stopped in the Easter section and I bought all of these decorations and like everything we're going to need for a nice dinner. And so I'm trying to make it as Eastery as I can without, our traditional Easter experiences.
Yeah, it's interesting the new kind of traditions or the creative things we have to do right now to make things happen. The best Easter I think I ever had was we always did like an Easter egg hunt, and there'd be like a little jelly bean in each plastic Easter egg. But one time, my mom told us there's three of us kids, and there's 3 special eggs. And once you find the special egg, don't get any of the other special eggs. You only get one special egg. And when you found the special egg, there was a slip of paper that was like, go into the dining room. And then when you went in the dining room, there was an Easter bunny Beanie Baby. And we were like hardcore into Beanie Babies. And so we each got like our own Beanie Baby. And that was, I don't know, like the best thing I could imagine as a child. So
that sounds amazing.
I don't remember getting like a whole Easter basket per se, but my mom definitely got a lot of C's candy, and then those like Russell Stover eggs, the like chocolatey coconut ones, jelly beans. Ugh. But the Beanie Baby bunnies were the height. Okay, so one reason I wanted to talk to you today, besides just loving hearing your voice, is that obviously, as you said in the intro, you're very science-y and you have a strong background in working in the lab and that. You also have a very caring heart, and you and I have had a lot of conversations that are very like feelingsy and like, how's your heart doing? So I thought it would be fun to kind of have an episode about personal growth.
Yeah, I love that idea.
So I want to talk real quick about, I thought about it this morning, and I don't want to have a self-care episode. I want to have a personal growth episode. And I thought about the difference, and that is that like self-care is remembering that you're basically just a more complicated houseplant. That like you need to be watered and like finding ways to soothe yourself and comfort yourself, checking in. Self-care can even be like setting emotional boundaries. Like self-care is what's going to get you through these times right now. So taking a shower, how you dress yourself, choosing what to consume. So like, are you going to watch scary shows or comforting shows, that sort of thing? Whereas I feel like personal growth is what will carry you out of this and onto your next thing. It's more like, who am I and what should I do in the world and what should I stop doing in the world? So I was thinking about how personal growth is not always easy. Like I'm thinking like therapy stuff, like that's not always like, you're a good person deserving of love, which is self-care. It's more like, here are strengths and weaknesses in yourself. And like after you've self-cared, you can have personal growth. So kind of like self-analysis is more beyond, sometimes it's not easy. So I had 3 things I wanted to talk about with that today. So the first thing was I want to talk about the KonMari method. The second thing is love languages. And then the third thing is brief Enneagram stuff.
Great.
So I'll hop in with the first thing I want to talk about, which is the KonMari method. So in 2011, Marie Kondo wrote The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up. Are you familiar with this?
I'm familiar, yes.
Okay, have you read the book?
No, but I watched a couple of the Netflix episodes, so.
I think Haiti Patterson is probably the one who told me about this book in like at the end of college. And I read it a few years later, and then I've watched a few episodes of the TV show. But this is, for anyone not familiar, her name's Marie Kondo, and the method she uses is called the KonMari method it's about like cleaning up your home, but it's not so much about what you throw away, it's about what you keep. And so she's the one, it's kind of famous for the like, does it spark joy? Like you're supposed to hold an item and ask yourself if it sparks joy. So have you done any of this, Kaitlin?
I've definitely tried. Every season I need like a good closet clean out, and I try to go about it that way. But I'm a very sentimental person. It is very, very difficult for me.
Yeah, that's actually why I really like the KonMari method. So I hate like spring cleaning and the whole like organization mentality, because I find that it ends up reducing a lot of your items to like, this is trash, get rid of it all. And that's like not easy for me to stomach. Whereas I feel like with KonMari, what she says is when you get rid of an item, thank it and then get rid of it. And I'm like, I can do that. Like, thank you, item, like to hold your item. And when you hold an item, you're supposed to ask yourself right now, does it make me happy? Because a lot of times we hold on to our items and we go, oh, well, someday I might be a person who water skis. Or I used to be a person who water skis. But if you're not right now a person who water skis, thank those water skis and then send them along to someone who does want to water ski. And I think that's my problem, is like, I can never get rid of a stuffed animal because I like look at its beautiful little face and I'm like, you're so precious. And so I feel like a lot of the home cleaning and organization tends to be like, everything is trash, get rid of it. But I feel like KonMari kind of recognized that it's about building the life that you want around you. Like, what do you want to look around your room and find happiness? And that's why I put this this is a self-care thing, but I also think it's a personal growth because it's about learning yourself, like learning who you are and like what kind of person you are. And when you look around your home, you do get a really good sense of that. And I feel like a lot of times the things we have in our home are just for shaping our identity. So like sometimes on your bookshelf, you may never want to read that book again, but you may want to have that book because it says that you're a certain person, that you have that book.
I see.
So you want people to come into your home and be like, oh wow, a water skier. Water skis is always the example I'm going to use because it's just it's the best way to describe this. Because chances are, like, so you're either people who hoard are either afraid of the future, they're paranoid that something like what's happening right now could happen, or they're holding on to the past and they can't let go of the time they used to water ski. So identifying why you're holding on to an item. And then you talked about like having items that are sentimental to you. And so I wanted to talk about that because I never realized this fully about myself, or I never was able to articulate it until I saw Garrett Watts is a YouTuber, and he had an episode. He always does like really silly videos, but he had a video about like how he was hoarding and he needed to get rid of his stuff. And then he talked about how like he stopped the video and then he made a part 2. And in the part 2, he was like, I had a realization about myself, and it was why it was hard for me to get rid of stuff. And it was because I personified my objects. And when he said this, I was like, oh my gosh, that is so me. And I don't think this is true. Actually, I know this is not true for everyone. But personification is giving human characteristics to non-human things. So people do this with pets, where they're like, oh, Skippy has this personality, and she, like, I did this, with my lizard, where I'm like, he has this whole inner workings of his brain and this and that. But like, you don't really know what's going on with your animals, but we treat them like humans. We give them human voices, we put human clothes on them, this and that. But I do this with more than pets. I do this with everything. So like my lamp has like a personality to me. And I think I probably am a fairly extreme case of this, but I think for people who have a harder time getting rid of stuff, it's not like a materialistic thing. It's not like, oh, I love name brand high-end items. Like I'm not, like I have most of my same clothes I've had since high school, literally. I have a lot of things that, like I have a 1999 chess champion t-shirt. Like I have shoes I remember getting when I lived in Florida, and that was in 2005. So it's not so much a materialistic thing as it is like you personify, like everything I own has a name. My computer's Eva, my car is Harvey, my phone is Goldie. Like everything has a name, and that's why it's really hard to get rid of stuff. So I'm going to stop talking and let you respond.
I feel as though I may personify like a few things in my life. I think I've slowly started to grow out of that, though. I definitely remember in high school I did the same thing. I'd like name every single thing I had. You kind of make like a personal connection with it. For me, I think the hardest part of me wanting to get rid of things or kind of, determine what sparks joy in me is I probably hold on to the past, honestly. Like I have a lot of memories. I put a lot of memories in different objects in, like I've got this really old lamp shade and like a lamp, and it was super cute, and it's like stained all over because I told my sister a joke and she like sprayed wine all over it. Like, it's like they're weird things. Like I don't want to get rid of that because I have this memory of it, or I have like medals from like when I used to run in elementary school. Like I don't need those. I don't run now, but I'm like, oh, I have all of these memories and all of it represents the hard work that I put into that when I was 8. And I want to keep those memories around. I don't know. So I have a harder time letting go of the past in my experience, I think.
Yeah, I definitely can look at any object. Like I can reach in any direction and tell you like where I got it, who gave it to me, its story of our life together, and it really does craft your identity. But I think that's why I wanted to talk about this in personal growth, because it's important to know like the reason you keep things. And then like, so I'm at the point in my quarantine where I literally wore a onesie yesterday and I rotated all of my furniture 90 degrees. So what that means is I basically took my living room and just shifted it all one direction. So, but when I was growing up, about every 2 years, maybe in my life, my entire like all of my house would look different. Like my furniture would just be moved around. And I remember it was kind of disconcerting because you're used to things being a certain way. But when it shifts around, it does kind of help you feel like maybe you live somewhere new, or I guess it can kind of freshen things up. And so I think that could be a self-growth thing right now, is like recognizing the life that you want to have here on out. And when you put things in certain places, you're saying, okay, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to do this work, or I'm going to stand here, I'm going to do this cooking. Like you're planning for the life that you want.
Yeah. I can definitely, agree with that. I've had those experiences too, especially like moving into new places. It's like the first couple days, you're like, this is new. I don't like it. I don't want to do it anymore. I want to go back home to my parents' house, something more familiar. But as you kind of grow into it, you definitely, change, and like we were talking about, like you grow and get to learn new things, get to learn how to do new things on your own, and move on from that past ideal into something that's more present.
Yeah, I think when you first move into a space, also, you set everything up a certain way because it looks nice, but then when you actually live in that space, it might not be a livable setup. So then when you learn, like, oh, this is the nice warm spot, maybe I should put my chair there so I can do my reading there, like, whatever and the other thing, too, this is, when I lost my lizard baby son last November, I really felt like I had to rearrange everything because like I was sad looking at his empty spot. And I organized a little, like I put the Christmas tree where his terrarium had been. So I kind of did a little bit of organizing, but then now that the Christmas tree is gone, in April, I was like, I need to like really move it around. So like I put the couch that I watch TV, I put that where his terrarium is. So I kind of feel like connected to his spot now. Like I'm sitting in the warm, sunny spot where he was, and I kind of feel a little connected to him. But even if like maybe you got out of a relationship and someone moved out of your home, or there was a death, or even just like if you had a lot of depression in a certain area, it is nice to like freshen the space up and move around.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. I don't know. I kind of like I was explaining earlier, I'm a big fan of like cleaning and reorganizing. A little bit for that freshness, a little bit because I can't really move my furniture anywhere because I live in such a small apartment. But it's like the best I can do when I'm feeling motivated is really, rearrange my bookshelf, put, the things that I think are going to be important for me in the next couple months up front. I don't want to say I'm an artist, but like I really enjoy crafting and stuff. So right now, all of my scrapbooking stuff is at the forefront of my bookshelves so that I can just reach for those and craft when I'm watching TV at night or whatever. And that kind of, I don't know, it kind of circulates through my different hobbies as I kind of fall into them,
You've made me some incredible artistic crafts. I would definitely say you're an artist.
I'm like I'm very amateur.
Doesn't matter.
I love to do it. It's just so fun, and it's a good way to like. That's one of my self-cares is doing like artsy things, because it's not like I'm gonna sell any of it, but I love giving as gifts. I love doing it just to kind of be an outlet. It's a fun time.
Yeah. I know a lot of people right now are really into Animal Crossing, and there's something psychologically about like with I was actually reading an article about this, about with Animal Crossing, where like you're setting up your home, you're putting things in order, you're organizing your furniture in your little home exactly the way you want it. For anyone who doesn't know, Animal Crossing is like The Sims, but with Neopets infused. But some people really I personally would find that very tedious, but my wife, Kim, calls it getting work done. She like gets her Animal Crossing work done. She like pulls the weeds and stuff. But for me, like I literally can't sleep if I feel like there's like dishes in the sink, and like I'll lay in bed and like for the last, since my lizard died, I've been thinking like how I want to rearrange my house. Like I will just think about these organization stuff intensely. Not to the degree that KonMari is. Her book is so precious because it's so organized and it's so like, here's matter of fact how it is. But then she also goes into some personal stuff where she's like, I loved organization so much as a child. I remember not getting the organization system the way I wanted it. And then I passed out and I was like, oh, honey.
Oh, dear.
So definitely I'm not like that. But I do feel like KonMari, Marie Kondo, is right. If you set your house in order, it helps you mentally declutter. Yeah. So anyone who wants to check that out, her name's Marie Kondo with a K. The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up is her book. And she also has like journals and extra things that go along with that, supplemental. But she also has the Netflix show that Kaitlin talked about. One last note on that. I learned a lot about like feng shui and setting up your house in specific ways when I moved out here to California 6 years ago from Rosie. So maybe I'll have an episode where Rosie can kind of explain that to people. But it was a lot of like, make sure your entryway is very open. And she talked about like north, south, west quadrants of your home and how things are supposed to be like organized. And I thought that was really interesting. So maybe I'll have her on. Yeah, she's great. I love her. So the next thing I wanted to talk about, love languages.
Love me some love languages.
Love me some love languages. So I'm not an expert really in anything, but I wanted to kind of just give a brief. So love languages, apparently, I didn't know this, but Gary Chapman wrote a book in 1992, and that's like where love languages come from. I thought it was just like a broad psychology thing, but anyways. So you want to give us a rundown of love languages, Kaitlin?
Sure. So from what I understand of love languages is everyone has their like primary love language, the primary way that they enjoy receiving love. And so the top, or I guess the 5 languages there are physical touch, words of affirmation, acts of service, gift giving, quality time. Everyone has a little bit of each love language, but they have a primary and a secondary love language that really is how they enjoy experiencing love. But I have found it very interesting to know the love languages of my loved ones, specifically because I love to receive love through physical touch. That's like my really big one. Whereas my mom loves acts of service. And when I was growing up, it was really confusing to me when I'd like give her a big hug and tell her I love her, why she didn't feel loved. And so once I started to kind of connect the dots, it's like, oh, she would feel loved if I did the dishes for her today, or if I made sure that the house was all tidy, that I put my shoes away when she got home. And so it's really helped me make sure that I have a more loving connection with those around me. And yeah, I really enjoy that type of knowledge about other people.
Totally. And you made a good point, which is it's really helpful to know other people's love languages. So for personal growth, it's nice to know your own love language because it might explain like why you're not getting the love that helps you grow in the way that you need. But it might help you to learn that like people are trying to give you love. It just might not be in the way that you receive it. I think it's helpful to learn your own love language so you can give yourself love that way. You might be able to do all of these with yourself, actually. I was just thinking like words of affirmation could be weird, but actually I love that video of that little girl in the mirror where she's like, I am good, I am smart, she's boosting herself up.
Yeah.
But I also think it's helpful in like give your significant other the tools to like, here's how to care for me. So I like that, but I like love languages for other people, because we did that in our sorority. Kaitlin and I were in the same sorority where we'd like ask everyone their love languages at the beginning of the semester, and then we'd make sure to try and do things that like hit each one. Let's go through them real quick. And so you said that physical touch is your top one?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So physical touch, I think initially when people say my love language is physical touch, everyone thinks like dirty right away. But I think physical touch is just like, it can be a handshake. It could be playing with someone's hair. Like, it doesn't have to be a romantic or sexual thing. Do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, definitely. In terms of like with me and my husband, I'm always like, hey, can we just like hang out on the couch, and like holding hands is a great thing, or like cuddling. Definitely my go-to. I'm a big hugger with people that I'm familiar with and, have a good relationship with. Yeah, overall, it's just kind of an endearing touch usually. I'm a big dancer too, and I like to partner dance. And so when I have friends within the dance scene, I love that physical connection that we can have through dance. And that just kind of makes me feel connected, I guess, to another person. And that's something that I think all humans really enjoy, is kind of having that connection to people. And so that's primarily how I enjoy to get my love and human connection.
I'm so in awe of dancers because I'm so not in my body. And I remember like I took some dance classes as a kid, and whenever I tried to do, like even in college, I took like a modern dance class, and I feel like I overthink it, and like I'll know the instruction and I'll be going through the dance routine, but I'm always one step behind, and it's because I'm not like present in my body. I think with like physical touch is the least for me. And I think it's important to know like when people don't receive that well. So like, if someone doesn't receive quality time well, maybe just don't be with that person. But like if you don't receive gifts well, it doesn't mean you hate giving gifts. It just means that you might give someone a really thoughtful gift and they might like be like, oh, thanks, whatever. Like it doesn't mean that much to them. So it is helpful to know or like if someone's not a physical touch person, it might be helpful to know that like they don't want to hold your hand while you guys are talking. But like I remember being like 11 and 12, and all of my friends on the swim team would be like, bye, love you. And then they'd like give each other a hug on our way out of practice. And I was like, I've known you guys since I was 8. Why are we suddenly hugging? Like it was so weird to me when people all started to hug. I think that's like a middle school thing. I was homeschooled, so I guess I missed that. But I remember like in my extracurriculars being like, why are people, we're kids, right? Like, why are we hugging? It was so weird to me.
I had the exact opposite experience in karate in like elementary to high school, and I guess you're right, towards like the middle school age, I had to either give every one of my friends a hug or a high five before I left, or else I just couldn't leave. Like I could not physically do it. And I think that's kind of where my like physical touch language probably started. And like, I don't know, I just liked feeling that connection. And I think part of it was me not knowing what other people's love languages were, but I was like, I want them to know that I am acknowledging them before I leave, kind of situation. So it was a little bit of both what I needed and something I wanted them to know as well.
I usually am thinking like, is there a way I can leave this party and thank the host but not have to hug them? But like that sounds, I don't know, I know that sounds bad, but I think a lot of people feel that way. But I am, like, it is very meaningful to me because I'm at a distance now physically. Everyone is, but like, I've been in California for 6 years. So when I do see my friends, like, I want to sloth hug you, which is hug you so close and just stroke you on your face with my hand, like a sloth would. So yes, if I haven't seen my friends in a really long time, that is important to like connect. But then like, I'm good after that one big, strong sloth hug.
Like, this has been great. I'm done now. And yeah, everyone has like degrees of willingness that they're like that they're willing to experience within each love language. You just got to make sure you don't go over that, and it'll be fine.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I guess to me, a hug is like very reserved for something super meaningful. So like at the end of, this is like a weird psychological thing for me, but like when you've earned a hug from an authority figure, like when your teacher at the end of or like at graduation is like, thanks for whatever, and like gives you like a very nice platonic hug. And then you're like, wow, I really earned that. That makes me feel nice. So it's not that I'm like anti-touch. I think when I tell people this, they worry that like, oh no, have I been touching you? And I'm like, no, it's just, that's not my top way that I receive love. I recognize it as like something that you earn, but it's not something that like makes me feel loved to be like if you're petting my hair or holding my hand while we talk. I don't need that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not everyone's cup of tea, but that's why there are 5 love languages.
It's so true. I don't want to poo-poo on that one. I just wanted to bring that up as one that because I'm pretty strong on the other ones, but that one is like one where it took me a long time to realize that is how people show their love, because there were times when like I was like, I gave this person all these amazing, thoughtful gifts, and I just don't feel like they love me. And then I realized like, oh, they sit and they listen to me, and that's quality time. Or, oh, when I'm talking, they're like stroking my hair this was a very like platonic thing. This was non-romantic, but I was like, oh, they're stroking my hair and like they're listening, and for them, they're like physically connected to me and they do love me. So just, I think was really important for me to like learn that physical touch is real for other people, just because I don't experience it, just because it's not high on my list. Acts of service is the next one, and that's like doing chores for other people, or like if you go over and like our brother fraternity in college sometimes would come over and scrape the snow off of our cars in the morning, and that was very nice.
Yeah, I tend for this one is mostly chores is what I've experienced. Mostly the only person I really know who has this love language is my mom. Yeah, I think people, at least in my experience, people who do a lot for other people, I think they just want to know that what they're doing is appreciated, and they want a little bit of the favor returned. And so I enjoy doing that kind of stuff with my mom. Every Sunday she'll cook a big dinner for us, and not every week, but sometimes I like to collect all the dishes after dinner and do them for her so that she knows I appreciated what she did for us, and that's always meaningful for her. And yeah.
I think we all think of chores as like not fun, but this is something, you and I have talked about this before, but like good marriage advice, which is when you wake up in the morning, ask yourself how you can make that day better for your significant other. And if you go about your things like that and you think like, oh, I'm doing the dishes and this is nice for me, but it's also like because I love the person I'm with, and then not expecting anything in because of it. Like, I mean, it's nice that the person thanks you, but it helps, instead of going, oh, all these dishes, to go, oh, here's a way that I can like do an act of service for the person I love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And it's definitely something that as I become a wife, and even like when I was in college and I'd room with a couple different friends from high school, I'd see myself doing a lot of the housework and seeing other people kind of take over those roles. I could see how appreciative I could be for those acts of service that they do for me, because they do these things in order to make me not have to do it, which gives me time to do the things that I love. So I think it's a good thing to note if you know someone who has this as their primary love language, because it's an easy thing to really do. It's not a difficult thing to pick up a broom or whatever, mop for 30 minutes and be like, okay, here you go. So I don't know. I think it's an interesting one that I don't necessarily connect with 100%, but I know people who do. And I definitely try to make sure that's in the forefront of my mind when I'm around them.
Yeah, I think of acts of service as like the things you don't want to do, but you do because you love the people.
Yes.
So it's like, the trip to the airport, or the chores, or like, and this can be important to know about other people if you are like, why are they not giving me the words of affirmation I need? And it's like, well, they did all these chores for you and that was the way they showed their love, but they might not tell you the words, I love you. But taking time to tutor you in a subject you need. The next one, which I just talked about, was words of affirmation. And this is like the verbal I love you, compliments, those sorts of positive things.
Yeah, I think my husband is primarily words of affirmation is his love language, which is easier for me because I love so much about him. So I like to tell him every day the things that I do like about him, and when he does something that helps me out, when he does an act of service for me, or when he does indulge in my physical touch that I need, I make sure to affirm that, to be like, hey, this is something I really appreciate that you're doing for me. I know you're sacrificing time from the things that you love to do to spend this time doing things for me, and I really appreciate that. And I think he appreciates the recognition as well. And then also, I think words of affirmation is good to help with a little, I don't want to say self-confidence, but in some cases, knowing that who you are is kind of affirmed, and what you enjoy being with a person is always something that feels nice. And so I think this one everyone has a little bit of. I think this is definitely a love language that everyone loves to experience. Maybe not everyone loves compliments, but even if you don't like compliments, it's kind of like you can appreciate when they do come around.
Yeah, I think it's important to know if someone is words of affirmation specifically, not just to help them, but also to make sure you're not hindering them. So if you are someone who jokes with people and you're like, oh, you're so smelly, or what, I don't know, if you kind of talk down to your friends as a joke, you might really be hurting that person if they're words of affirmation. I think of Leslie Knope a lot with this one, which is the you're a beautiful butterfly beacon of goodness and light, and those sorts of absurdly over the top compliments. But I do think it's important to keep in mind, if someone is really built up by words, they can also be torn down by words.
Oh, definitely. And I think with everyone, I try to watch my words, because I know I'm sensitive to words as well. They don't necessarily build me up as much, but they definitely can tear me down. And so I try to make sure with everything that I say to other people, I try to frame it, if it is something that is a little more critical, into something that could be turned into a piece of growth, so that it's like, hey, this is kind of what I might need from you. Not that you're doing anything wrong right now, but I think if you do something like this, it could be really helpful, which is something that I've been experiencing in my marriage, just as we're getting to know each other in a different way, trying to make sure that when I need something, I ask for it in a way that isn't going to be accusatory and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Gift giving is the next one, which I thought was kind of funny because I was listening to a podcast yesterday. I like to listen to Dating Straight, and they were talking about actually love languages. They were saying who would ever get gift giving? Oh my gosh, if you got gift giving, you'd probably never say that one. And I was like, I think gift giving is misunderstood. I don't think it's here's a new Prada purse. I think it's here's something that made me think of you, even if it cost $1. I saw it and I thought of you, or you expressed that you wanted this thing, but you'd never buy it for yourself, and I got it for you. I think gift giving is really misunderstood and underrated.
I agree. Honestly, I think my favorite way to give love is gift giving, because I do exactly what you just described. I will be walking through the store, and the other day I was down the Easter aisle, and one of my favorite coworkers loves to play soccer, and there's a little Easter bunny chocolate guy with a soccer ball, and I was like, I have to get this for my friend because I know he loves that kind of thing. And I'm that kind of person who will see something, think of a person, have to buy it so that they can have it. I don't know why. That's just one of my favorite things to do. I agree with you. It's definitely underrated. And it's, if you're someone who enjoys receiving gifts too, it's nice because you like to be thought of like that, because it feels unprompted, and that someone was just naturally thinking about you and your interests, and so they were able to keep you in mind while they were doing something that may not have involved you. And I think it's a very beautiful love language.
Yeah, and it's kind of somewhat the opposite of the last one, which is quality time. So you were just saying, when I'm not with you, I think of you, and here's a gift, versus quality time, which is when we're together, undivided attention. So quality time kind of irks me because I'm isn't everyone needing quality time? But I think the important thing about quality time is the undivided attention. So it's we're together, we're having a meal, it doesn't matter where we are, it's you and me, and I'm not on my phone. I'm giving you my attention and I'm listening to what you're saying. And so I think that's what that love language is about.
Yeah, and I think that's honestly one of the harder ones is the quality time, because there are so many distractions going on now in the world, especially with what's going on right now. And it's hard to really think about, one person and what they could be going through when there's so much going on, especially with phones, current events, all of that kind of thing. So I think quality time is definitely one of the ones that even I have to consistently make sure I'm present in those situations.
Yeah, I bet if you're quarantined with other people right now, quality time could be a big one that people are getting that they haven't previously gotten. Whereas physical touch, if you're quarantined alone, you might not be getting that, and that might be why right now is extra agitating to you. So if you know your love language, it might really help to learn why you're extra agitated or what you could be doing. So if you need quality time, it could be, having that phone conversation with a friend, or maybe it's not helpful for you to be on the phone. Maybe you need to actually Skype and see someone.
Definitely. My family and I have been doing the little Facebook video messages the last few times that we've talked, and that's really lifted my spirits to be able to see them and play with the funny filters and just kind of chit chat while actually seeing their faces, because it is hard to just hear them, especially right now.
Mm-hmm. You said, so then we've talked about all 5, and you said physical touch is your biggest one. What do you think is your second one?
Probably quality time. It's a hard one. I like to, be heard when I'm talking, and I usually at the end of the day I have so much to say about all of my stories. I love to tell stories. It's a nice kind of routine. My husband and I will talk while we're making dinner and while we're eating to just catch up on how we're doing and what's going on in our lives. And those are my top 2. How about for you and Kim? What are your guys's?
Kim and I haven't actually talked a lot together about it, but I know for myself, I'm a big combination of gifts and words of affirmation. But there's a caveat to that. I don't need a gift just to get a gift. Birthday and Christmas is nice, but I really love I was walking in this marketplace and I saw this squid thing and it made me think of your love of squids, which I don't have. I'm just trying to think of it. Like when someone sends me, a sloth thing that they saw, or I think I really love the specific, this made me think of an inside joke that we have and I had to get it for you. And I don't really care what it costs, but those thoughtful gifts. But the other thing is words of affirmation, I'm not very auditory. So when someone says something, I'm likely to forget it. But if you wrote it down, I'm so written word, which is not any of them, but written words of affirmation are my jam. If someone writes me a love letter, it will be the greatest treasure of my life. So I think of that as a gift and words of affirmation. You wrote down words of affirmation and gifted it to me. that's what I'm here for. So the handmade, my walls are covered in the beautiful the sloth art that you made me, or my sister, she's painted me incredible paintings, or Katrina's really good about thoughtful, scrapbooky, personal gifts. So I have a lot of stuff that Katrina's done. But if you made art and you crafted it and sent it to me, that is the stuff that, or Mary got me this beautiful, it's 2 penguins and they're holding hands. It's a wood carving. But I saw it probably 8 to 10 years ago, in a shop in Boulder, so long ago. And I was just that is my heart. It was so important to me. And I took a photo of it and I had it as my background on my phone for a while, but I never talked about it. And then Mary gave it to me 2 years ago. And I was just it made me think of in Titanic when they're you went back and you got the jewel from the bottom of the ocean in that Britney Spears song. She in Titanic, she throws the locket in the ocean, and then in the Britney Spears song when he's baby, you went and fished it out. It was just so meaningful to me. So yeah, I would say that those are Those are like my things. Like my bachelorette party, you guys all like gave nice speeches about things you loved about me, and then a bunch of y'all also wrote it down and like gave it to me, and I reread those, and just being like showered with words of affirmation was really nice in the moment. But it's so pleasurable for me to look back later and be like, oh yeah, here it is, they still love me.
I like that. I tend to, as part of my loving to give gifts, I like to write, little messages to my mom and dad or to my husband before he leaves for work or whatever. I love that kind of stuff too. So I can understand how impactful that can be.
Hey, Kat from the future. So for the next 25 minutes, Kaitlin and I took a love language quiz, and I decided to cut it for time, as well as it just got fairly personal, and we just ended up having a really great conversation that I think is just for the two of us. So I decided to cut it for time, as well as the quiz was a bit rubbish. It wasn't really a very helpful quiz. So I'll put a quiz in the link that's a bit more professional and official. But anyways, here's the results of this rubbish quiz. It's calculating my results.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, that's so weird. It says quality time.
Ooh, mixing it up.
I thought it was...
Oh, that's what mine says.
That's so weird. It probably all says that. Well, I don't know that that was the single greatest test of all time, but I'll probably include the real one. Okay, well, so do you want me to kind of briefly do Enneagram stuff, or do you want to come back and do that for a part 2 someday?
We could do a quick Enneagram if you want to talk about it.
Okay, so I'll do the last one then kind of briefly, because it's like the longest one. You could do a whole other episode about it. Enneagram, to me, is the most helpful personal growth thing that I know of. I think anything, like I personally don't believe in horoscopes, because I don't think that when you were born affects who you are. But I think if you read your horoscope, or you really identify with your zodiac sign, or whatever your thing is, even if you read a fortune cookie and you're like, oh, that's so totally me, I think that's important personal growth, because you saw something and you recognized it in yourself, and I think that helps you learn about yourself and grow.
I agree. I've been slowly learning more about the Enneagram stuff, and really kind of understanding what I relate to kind of helps me make decisions in a way that I know will be best for me. Because sometimes I'll make decisions, I'm like, well, I won't 100% enjoy this, but maybe it'll be better, so I'll try this. And it's like, okay, why don't you just do the thing that'll make you happy? It'll be a lot easier.
Yeah. Enneagram is it's like a really simple system. There's 9 personality types, but it's really complex, because there's like arrows of integration and disintegration, and there's subtypes, and there's wings, and there's a lot to it. But the basic summation of it is that basically read Rizzo and Hudson's personality types. That's like my Enneagram Bible. So anything they say I think is wonderful. But the way I describe it in the simplest terms possible, and just to give a quick thing here, is say there was a car crash. 9 people could come up and have a different reaction, and no one is wrong or right. So there's not like a good or a bad type. Someone may take photos of the car crash for insurance purposes. Someone may call the ambulance. Someone may run up and be like, oh, are you okay, to the person who was injured. Some person may come and see that 8 other people are helping and drive off because they don't want to crowd the area. So everybody is going to do something different. And again, no one is doing the right or wrong thing unless you caused the car crash and then drove off. But my other example is, if you're a shepherd and you're trying to get your sheep somewhere, there's different strengths and weaknesses that each number is going to have. So like if you are the number 2, you might be like, oh look, there's a bunny, come join our flock. Oh look, a dog, come join our flock. Like you might help everyone come join the flock, and that's nice, but that might slow down your herd, and it might not help the sheep in the long run if you're letting everyone in. Whereas Enneagram type 8 might say, sorry, you're the slow sheep, get out of the herd, because I'm here to protect the strong in the pack. And so you might view that as unkind, but it might, in the long run, save the lives of more sheep if you weed out the weak ones. So that's like a basic, there's no good or bad type. So I'll do a really quick, this is from the EnneagramInstitute.com, which is Rizzo and Hudson's like website Cat from the future again. So here's where I described all 9 types, reading to you the chart from the Enneagram Institute, but honestly, I think you can do that yourself. For the sake of time, I'll just sum it up. 1 is the reformer, 2 is the helper, 3 is the achiever, 4 is the individualist, 5 is the investigator, 6 is the loyalist, 7 is the enthusiast, 8 is the challenger, and 9 is the peacemaker, and you can look up strengths and weaknesses for each type. Okay, back to past me. There's like a reason that it's your strength and your weakness. So an example would be 9 is the peacemaker. So it said complacent and resigned. What that means is the 9 wants peace at all costs. They kind of want things to be smooth. They don't want to rock the boat. But some people can view that as you're being complacent, or you're just settling, or you're just like being lazy. So each number also has like a correlation with one of the 7 deadly sins. That was a really quick explanation of what the Enneagram is. But I think it's important, if you want to grow right now, to learn a little bit about yourself and like who you are in the world and who you want to be in the world and how you can be that person by kind of overcoming your weaknesses or learning to not let them control you. So do you want to tell us a little bit about your number, Kaitlin?
Sure. I'm a number 6, so I'm a loyalist, which is kind of funny. I think I was talking to our friend Leah, and I was like, I don't even know if I relate to number 6 that much. Like, I don't like this about it. I don't like this about it. And they're like, you're definitely a 6 because you think you don't like a lot of these aspects. I'm like, crap. Okay, fine. But yeah, so like as an Enneagram type 6, am very much, a loyalist, very supportive and like engaged. But at the same time, I'm like high anxiety, and I've been listening to a couple podcasts about, all of these different numbers, and it's very interesting because I can relate to it so much, and I just don't want to, you don't want to look into those weaknesses and be like, shoot, like when I spiral, I'm too anxious, or I think the worst of people. Acknowledging it has been a good way to kind of bring me back down and ground and be like, okay, this is kind of me going off the edge, and this is how I can rein it in and make it into a productive experience.
Yeah, I think that's why I said at the beginning this is not necessarily a self-care thing, because a self-care is like, oh, you're beautiful, you're wonderful, let me paint your nails, self. Whereas like self-discovery and self-analysis can be really hard, but it is ultimately going to make you a stronger, better you if you know these things about yourself. That's why I like the Enneagram, because I feel like Myers-Briggs is very like, here's what your career should be, whereas Enneagram is like, here's why at your core you are who you are, and it's when you were a kid you developed these coping mechanisms, and this applies to everything in your life. So it's very like psychology based, but I'm not going to go too much further into it because, again, go read a book on it. There's a million different experts and gurus on the topic. But even if you just take a quick test and look into it, my wife Kim says that whichever number feels like it attacks you personally the most, where you're like, but no, that's not me, that's probably the number that you are. She's a 4 and I'm a 2. So, do you know your husband's number?
He's a 9.
Oh, okay.
I've been kind of reading up on his, just so a little bit like a love language thing, to be like, okay, what is he like? What is a good way to like help him in different situations? And so that's it's interesting because it goes against my instincts, I guess. What he would need in different situations is against what I would typically do. So that's been a bit of a learning situation.
Yeah, Kim and I haven't really talked too much about each other's love language, but we definitely talk a lot, probably against her will, about Enneagram stuff, because it's like my everything. I think it's so important to know. And it's amazing, like, how true it is, and how, I mean, like, you can watch a TV show and totally, like, you shouldn't diagnose other people is an important thing they talk about, but with a TV show, it's something where they're written a specific way by a person for a reason and they do fit these character types, but it's dangerous to diagnose other people because everyone can do the same thing. Like people can all be a teacher but for different reasons. So Enneagram is more about like your core motivation for doing the thing, so it's hard to actually diagnose other people. But the three most basic types are 3, 6, and 9, and that's like what so there's the thinking triad, the feeling triad, and the instinctual triad. So the thinking triad is the 6 is in the middle of that triad because you underemphasize thinking. So instead of thinking, you respond with fear or worry. The 9 is in the instinctual triad because they underuse their instincts. They don't ask themselves they don't trust their gut. They look around and say, like, what are other people doing? And then the 3 underemphasizes feelings. So instead of saying, how do I feel about something? They go, oh, what do I need to do to succeed? Here's how to get that. And so one thing I really like is reading each number believes something that isn't true, and that's like at your core. So a 1, so like if you go down the line, a 1 believes that in order to receive love, you have to be perfect. And you're kind of like, that like you earn your love by being good. And like only if you can be the best at that you can earn love. And then like a 2 believes that you have to give in order to get. And at first I was like, no, I don't believe that. And I thought about that and I was like, yeah, I think a lot of my thing, like even with my love language, I feel like if I give a lot of really personal, wonderful gifts out in the world, then people will love me. You're like trying to earn the love of other people by doing, as opposed to just you're lovable because of who you are. Like we're all lovable, but you think that you have to like earn the love. So I'm not going to go through them all, but again, a 3 believes that they have to earn the love by what they do. So that like you have to be the CEO of the company or the lead in the school play, and that like if they can achieve, then they deserve love. So I think that's important to look into right now if you're stuck in quarantine and you're wanting to grow as a person, to learn like the fallacy that you believe to be true. And you might not even know it, but that might be like what subconsciously is driving a lot of your actions in life.
I definitely agree. There's plenty of time for kind of some self-reflection. And I know I've definitely been a bit more emotional right now, especially because you're just kind of stuck. And so when I have kind of overexpressive feelings after those kind of outbursts, it's been nice to be like, okay, what really drove me to feel that way? And kind of reanalyze it and see how I can react differently in the future.
Yeah. Well, and I kind of just wanted to briefly touch on that because there's so much more to go into with Enneagram, and we don't have the time or the knowledge to do all of that. But I just wanted to hear some of your input on these self-discovery things, as well as if you had any other personal growth thing that you wanted to shout out that you think is helpful for people right now.
This might not be helpful for everyone, but I've definitely been kind of jumping into all of the things that I've wanted to be doing the last couple years. So like professionally, I've desired to, learn a coding language. And so I've really put some time into that. Or as a dancer, there's a lot of dance classes that are happening online. So I'm challenging myself and I'm trying a couple different dance classes, which has been like a really good way to motivate me to do these things. And then I don't really have an excuse to not do anything right now. So honestly, I've been kind of trying to push myself to see what else I can do. I've been, doing the things I like, but also trying to learn some new things. But I know that's not going to be helpful for everyone. And, the best thing might be to, pick up some self-care routines just to start looking into these self-growth. Because if you're feeling comfortable and safe, I think that's a good place to start in terms of self-growth.
Yeah, those are good points. Those are great points because you don't need to write the next great American novel right now. But if you have always wanted to do that, you do have time to do it right now. And so that's what I was trying to think when I was cleaning my house, was like those things where I always go, well, someday when I have a week off, which will never happen, but I'm going to water ski or whatever it is. And so now I'm looking at those things and I'm like, I've had a month off and I haven't done these things. These are probably things I never am actually going to do, so let's get rid of it. But yeah, it is, I have to remind myself that, like, I think, again, over 100,000 people have died at this point, so it's important not to say, this all happened so I could have this personal growth, because I've seen a lot of that mentality going around, and that really irks me, that, like, this is your deity telling you to calm down and take a breath, and I'm just like, I don't think all these people are dying so that you can learn to water ski. But I do think that this has happened. There's nothing that we can do about it other than flattening the curve by staying home. So how are you going to make good out of it? And so I think, like you're saying, learning those dance classes or doing those things that you haven't previously had the time to do could be a good use of your time. So do you have any recommendations for people of books, movies, TV?
Oh my goodness, that's such a big question. I haven't been doing much reading recently, mostly because I read a lot during like work hours, and I don't want to read more when I get home. In terms of like TV shows, I recently started watching Lego Masters on Hulu.
Is it good? I wanted to watch it.
I very much enjoy it. Honestly, any creative competition show, I love it. Like, is it baking? Yeah, I just watched one on Netflix that was like glass blowing. I don't know. It wasn't great. So I really enjoy Lego Masters because they are, very creative minds building something out of very little. And so I very much enjoyed it. I think it's still airing. So they might be on episode 9 or 10 out of 12 or something. In terms of like recommendations to do things, I've really honestly enjoyed like getting outside for a little bit every single day. Because I don't know about you, but I feel like when the days that I do stay in, like it's supposed to snow tomorrow, which I'm really bummed about. And when I stay inside all day, I just kind of feel cooped up and small. And so being outside just kind of reminds me that it's not as terrible as it feels inside. So that's my biggest recommendation.
I like it. Well, I appreciate the abundance of time you gave me today. I think this was a good chat, a good starting point for people to learn about something they may not have known about.
Yeah, I very much enjoyed talking to you. It's always nice. It's hard for me to really verbalize how I'm feeling sometimes. So it's always good. With you, it's so easy. So I very much enjoyed our conversation.
Oh, that's so nice. My wife was asking last night, I told her I was going to record today, and then she was like, what are you going to talk to Kaitlin about? And I was like, feelings. Just, how we're doing, our hearts, that sort of thing. Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, I'm going to wrap this up and say thanks everyone for listening. I hope that you are personally growing in wonderful directions, and all you are right now is enough. You don't have to do more or be more. Just this moment, you're enough. Okay, Kaitlin, I'm going to let you have the final meow.
Meow.
And that was it.